After a bit of a hiatus, I am back here with Studio Diaries episode number 5. Now, if you haven't watched our Studio Diaries before, these are a series where I basically just deep dive and talk about what is going on in the business. That could be something really tangible, like products we're launching, or it could be something slightly more existential, like things that I'm thinking about, I'm not sure if working, insecurities or successes, those kinds of topics. Basically, things that go on in the mind of any creative business owner, or any creative, to be honest. You might notice we are in another different setting. I feel like I'm giving you a real tour of my life through all these videos. We are now in my flat in London, and you will spot a little dog over there on the sofa behind. So we'll see how long it takes before Roger decides to slink off and go somewhere else. On the last Studio Diaries, quite a few people commented saying, don't worry about how long the videos are, because I kind of said, oh God, I'm sorry for rambling. And I am taking that entirely to heart, so you only have yourselves to blame for what is about to happen. It's been about 3 weeks since I last did the video, and actually a remarkable amount has happened in those 3 weeks. And I want to tell you about all of it, and all the different things that have gone on and things we've learned. So it does mean this might be quite long, but let me tell you everything we're going to cover, and that way you can always jump ahead to bits you're more interested if you want to. So here is my very detailed plan of everything we're now going to go through. So first up, I want to talk about the most recent thing to happen, which is a retreat I put on last weekend, my first ever freestyle embroidery retreat. So I want to tell you a little bit about what I learned from that. Then Jen and I took a day trip to Paris to visit a massive B2B trade fair called Maison Objet, and I'm going to tell you a bit about what I took away from it and how it's kind of changing what I think about the business. Then I'm going to talk about a very weird, out there new product which we're doing, which is these freestyle bundles. We had a photo shoot last week, and so we had to finish quite a few products for it, and I want to show you what they are. Fourth up, we're going full on business nerdy. I want to talk about my website SEO, and I mentioned it before, we're working on this search engine optimization. We're finally doing some of those sensible business practices that you're supposed to do. But I am really finding myself super conflicted on how to implement some of the changes our advisors are telling us to do whilst maintaining authenticity. So I want to talk a little bit about that. Fifth up is a bit more of a vulnerable topic where I want to talk about community, and I want to talk also mainly about the idea of if you're overstretched and you half-ass something, you cannot get the same outcome as if you actually put everything into it. So sometimes you have to do less, but do less better. And that is a really topic that I'm not great on. So I want to talk about that fifth. Sixth, I'm going to talk about a focus group session I'm running next week to trial a new product idea entirely, a totally new category. And I'm getting 15 people into the studio to test out if they like it. So this is like a real teaser, because we're probably not going to be able to launch it for sort of 18 months anyway, even if it is a success. So super, super detailed teaser. And last but not least, I will show you an update on how my stitching is going for the colour palette, the little Japanese books I talked about in the last Studio Diaries. So I'm going to talk about that last. Loads of content, loads of different topics, and I hope you find it all quite interesting. So we're going to kick off with number 1, which is all about my embroidery retreat. Now, just a really brief bit of background. I put on a retreat last weekend at my family home up in Yorkshire, and in the retreat it was all about designing your own freestyle embroidery. It was designing an embroidered landscape, and the workshop covered everything from how do you do a design to how do you paint a frame to go with the design, and every workshop attendee left with a painted frame and a design of their own to continue. I'm going to do a really full video next weekend, just showing the actual process from start to finish of what we covered. But what I want to talk more about here is the environment of running a retreat and the idea of running a retreat versus a one-day workshop. So I have run lots of one-day workshops in the past, and I am also a serial workshop attendee. And I think in a way that makes me quite a bad workshop host, because I host workshops in the style that I want to receive them, which isn't necessarily the style that everyone wants to receive them. So when I go to a workshop, maybe it's the northerner in me, But when I've booked onto a workshop, I want to make sure I come out really with a solid amount of new skill that I didn't have before, or I want to come out with loads of knowledge. I want to feel like I've majorly gained knowledge from the workshop, which means when I go to a class, I want like boom, 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 information, jobs, tasks, everything. Which is great, but actually I have sort of found that quite a few people from workshops, they want an element of that, but also you're going to a workshop as a nice day out. You're going to a workshop to meet other people. If the workshop is too back to back with various things, there's actually very little opportunity to sit and talk to the people, to feel relaxed, and it can feel a little stressful. And so this is what I've found from when I put on one-day classes. I think in my one-day classes, they are really full and intense, but also maybe a little bit hard on the attendees. And that's why I wanted to shift my one-day workshop into a 2-day retreat. Now, granted, I do think all I actually did was combine 2 one-day workshops back to back. So I definitely think I still maybe crammed in a little bit too much material, but I loved the atmosphere of doing a multi-day workshop. Doing a multi-day workshop means that the people in the class get to know each other better, and you create a really special atmosphere of supportiveness. Particularly when you're doing a workshop which is all around designing your own pieces, actually it's an incredibly uncomfortable and vulnerable place for most people to be. Most people who go to workshops aren't confident in what the task they're doing is. And if you're in an environment where everyone around you just wants you to do well, and everyone around you also can say to the others, I feel really uncomfortable right now, it enables you to feel that too. So my big takeaway from it is actually I do think if I am teaching in person, I am teaching something that brings people out their comfort zone. I need to allow people more time together. So whilst I really don't do many in-person workshops anymore, I loved the retreat format, and that is definitely something I am going to carry on doing, so that a few times every year we can actually have people get together and in a really safe space really start to explore their own creativity. They're my takeaways from the retreat, but watch out for next week when I will actually show you every single thing we got up to. My mum and dad were very heavily involved, so you will see a lot of them in that too. Okay, second up, I want to talk about Maison Objet. And I posted a short video just showing quite how mega Maison Objet is a couple of weeks ago. But basically, for background, it's a massive B2B trade fair, B2B kind of product trade fair. So it's where loads of shops, big shops, go to in order to buy product for their shops. But I have never been to a fair like this. Brands go to town. There's just the scale of the stands, the way they create these totally experiential retail spaces, I thought was mind-blowing. Now, we're not a wholesale business. Beyond a couple of very small selected stockists, we really do not stock our kits anywhere, and actually wholesale is not something I'm at all focused on. Mainly because I think it's super important with things like kits for us to maintain the relationship with the end user, because I want the end user to know where to go for help. I want you to know exactly where the videos are, and I just don't think you get that same engagement if you went, say, into a big shop and you bought the kit. You wouldn't know that we're here for you. So I think it's really important, until we are bigger, until we find partners that are willing to kind of really curate the experience with us, I think it's really important that we're just direct to consumer. Having said that though, I think at some point we will become wholesale, and I think at some point we will have that opportunity because I'm ambitious for the business. And if we want to really grow the business, actually at some point you want to be able to go and buy a kit within 20 miles of where you live without having to wait for the shipping or the expense of the shipping. So I feel like inevitably and hopefully at some point that is on the horizon for us. So going to this fair was a bit of a kind of insight into how could we do it if one day we do it. So I had 3 main reflections from visiting Maison Objet. So the first one is that physical retail could be so exciting. I don't know about other cities, I don't know about other countries, but in London there is not anywhere very exciting to go for craft. If you want to, say, get embroidery threads, or you want to get like yourself a kit, actually the only places you can really go to are places like big department stores like John Lewis, or you have places like Hobbycraft, which are generally kind of out of town in like more like industrial estate type places, or you have those really lovely stationery shops that sometimes quite often will have some kind of kits alongside everything in the stationery shop. But there's nowhere really exciting to go to that is dedicated to crafting. And when I was at the trade fair, I realised suddenly how infrequently I actually go into shops and how infrequently I actually handle products. All shopping experiences have become so 2D, you know, everything is kind of off the website, and the first time you kind of see the product is sometimes once it's arrived, once you've ordered it. Now, I've been thinking about physical retail for a while, because in February I went to New York and I went to go visit this needlepoint shop on the Upper East Side in Manhattan called Annie's. And when I went to Annie's, it had these kind of 2 large tables and then an area with sofas, and there were people stood around the table designing their products. They were kind of picking a canvas off the shelf and they were going and then choosing different colours of threads, and they were kind of creating their own designs, but then you had a shop assistant who was helping them and advising them and saying you might want this, you might want that. Then there was someone sat on the sofa who was actually just sat there sewing. And I thought this was like a magic space where people actually went as like a community engagement thing, and people could be there and actually have someone else around them to help advise them on how to begin. I thought, how magical would it be to have a completely experiential shop where you go in there and every single thing in the shop is a kit. Everything has to be made by you. There is not one finished product for sale. So you could go in and maybe you would have a wall of the painted frames, and then you would have shelves of fabric, and you would have a wall of threads, and you would go in and you would pick out your frame, and then you would go pick some fabrics, you would pick some threads, and there's someone there to guide you so you don't feel scared, you don't feel intimidated, but this really creative space where you actually feel happy that you can sort of sit there, almost like a bookshop used to be, like an independent bookshop vibe, but for craft. So I have had this idea in the back of my mind. It is not a commercially sensible idea. Like, physical retail is so expensive and so hard to make a success of. And there is definitely a sort of vanity project over sanity project thing about it. So, you know, it's a pipe dream, and it's a dream I have and a dream I hope to achieve in the long run. But going to Maison Objet made me think, firstly, that if I ever want to be the person who has that kind of retail establishment, I should really go out and support the people already taking that risk right now. I should make more effort to go to independent shops. I should make more effort to go into their space, because someone else probably has started with the same dream I have. And you're probably sat in a shop with few people coming in because everyone's shopping online. It just made me think physical retail should be exciting, but the only way it can be exciting is if we actually go to shops. The second thing I took away from it was this idea that if you're going to do something, you have to go for it. And I'll show the kind of reel of the event to the side, because you will see some of these stands that brands put on were absolutely mega. Like, they created a whole brand world. So you walked into their space and you fully understood the product. And actually that was all additive. Like, the product looked better because of the amount that had gone into creating the right environment. Whereas alongside it, there were a few more stands which were those kind of classic trade fair stands, which were more like the 3x3 metre boxes, where people had put some shelves in and people had done what they could do, but it wasn't to the same level. And that is obviously driven by budget. Everyone would want to do the really big stand or the big dramatic stand if they could, but not everyone can, and lots of people are limited by budget. The issue though was, when you're up against those other people, it lessened the products on the stands that hadn't gone for it. It made what would be really good products and what would be really good stands anywhere else not look as good, because they weren't in an environment where they could stand out. So it made me think, basically, if this is something we do one day, we have to do it at a point where we can go for it and we can create the fabled thread so it is mega, and so people want to come to the stand because they are excited about what you're doing. I don't think it's enough to just get into the right trade fair and be there. I think you have to stand out, or go to a trade fair we cannot afford and stand out there. And that's kind of the thing that made me think. And the final thing I thought was, I left with just a feeling of immense excitement about the opportunity we have. I think our products are really special. I think it's not just the designs or the kind of approach we're taking to all these crafts. I think the way they're packaged, the way they celebrate the making process, like everything involved in it, the brand world we're creating, I think is really special. And in as kind of non-arrogant a way as possible, when I was at the trade fair, I didn't feel like we would feel out of place. Like, there were some mega brands, like people I really thought were doing incredible things, and I thought we could hold our own. And that I found really exciting. There were brands across things like jigsaws, like a lot of paper crafts, like certain things like that, which look incredibly cool and sort of really engaging. But also, there was not one thing in textiles. And I don't think that's because people don't want to do textiles. I actually genuinely think they're very there's a mass appeal for these hobbies. I just think no one is doing something different in textiles, and it's a bit stuck, and it's also really overlooked. Maybe that's because it's women's work, I don't know. But I think it's really overlooked. And so I left feeling like, what an opportunity do we have as a business? If we just go for it, what an opportunity, because there is no one doing anything particularly exciting within textiles. So it was brilliant. It was exciting. There are no takeaways that really change anything we can do right now. But I think getting out and going to visit some of these things and seeing such inspiring brands doing amazing things is the absolute fire in my belly I needed. And I definitely think I will make a habit of visiting every year until the year when I am there with my mega stand. And I will think, yes, I wanted to get to this point. So next up, I want to talk about these freestyle bundles. And this I want to talk about because we had a photo shoot last week and we were recently just getting them all finished, choosing everything. It's a really unusual product, and so I want to explain it. So if you've watched anything like our Finding Inspiration videos, I think there's this hierarchy of the elements of the design that are most important, and the things that if you get them right, everything else will fall into place. And so for me, within my work, my hierarchy goes, first up, the most important thing is the colour palette. Second is how it's framed. Third is the design itself. And fourth is how it's stitched. So I think if you have a really good, strong colour palette, and if you pair it with a really considered complementary frame, then to some extent, the design is secondary. You do not need an excellent design to make it look like a great piece of art. And final one, stitching, it could be stitched terribly, and if you've got 1, 2 and a bit of 3 right, it is not going to matter. No one is going to notice. So I have this idea of this kind of hierarchy of design. So I want to prove it. I wanted to prove it through offering a product that kind of does that hierarchy of design. I've said before, and I will keep saying again, like, I obviously love kits, but I do not want anyone to stay on kits forever. I think kits are the gateway to help you build confidence. Kits are how you build the skill and the confidence, but I want everyone to do their own designs. I want you to explore your own creativity, because I think that's what's so exciting, and that's what I find most exciting. So what we are launching is these paired sets, where basically what you buy is a decoratively painted frame, which we have then paired with some fabric and some threads. And I'm going to stick them to the side. I'm going to flick through some images so you can see them. But basically the idea is exactly that hierarchy. If you get these from us, we have done steps 1 and 2 for you. So yeah, you have to create the design, but really whatever design you create, when you put it in this setting with this colour palette, it's going to be good. So I'm sort of holding your hand slightly whilst giving you a big old nudge over the edge towards designing your own pieces. They're unusual. It takes a bit of explaining. If you just stick it on the website, open access, people are going to be like, what is this product? This is so weird. And so for that reason, these are going as studio member only products. So only studio members will be able to access them from the studio shop. And I'll put a link that just explains that all down in the description of this video. But generally, when there's something new like this, something a bit unusual, we test it out with our studio members first to see how they go down. But I think these are really exciting, and I think this is what is the bit that makes people really feel so creative in themselves, and that's what I want to do. Okay, so number 4, and this is the bit where, please, it is going to be interesting, don't zone out. I'm going to talk about the website SEO, which does sound very dry, but I think you'll find quite interesting. I just want to just give you a bit of background on this whole topic. Basically, I launched the Fable Thread, the business, about 4.5 years ago. And for the first 3.5 years, we operated on a website that I built myself. And I am no tech person at all, so it was not a very well built website, not very well structured at all. Then last year, we worked with a website company to build our new website that we're currently on, and went through a full, proper, professional website build. But we still have never spent any time actually doing a lot of sensible business practices. And so one of those is optimizing what we do for search engines. Now, as luck would have it, at the start of this year, I did this training program through Goldman Sachs. And in the training program, I was in a small little growth group of other business founders. And of the 6 businesses, one of them, a guy called Aaron, ran a search engine optimization advisory company. So suddenly I had someone who I really trusted on hand to tell me that we are absolutely missing a trick. And the reason to take this stuff seriously is that the better the business can be, the more things we can sell, the more we can do. I have so many ideas. I cannot do those ideas if we do not have a profitable business. So maximizing your opportunity with everything you have is just like business sense. And even if it feels boring or anything like that, you have to take these things seriously. So in August, we started working with Aaron, and we started kind of making changes to what we do in order to help improve our rankings on search engines. Some of those things are really like technical things and a lot of stuff in the back end and all these like meta descriptions and H1 titles and alt tags and all these weird like terms that now I'm quite familiar with but did not know in July. Some of them are more visible changes to the website. And one that has struck a chord with me is that basically one of the terms that Aaron and their company want us to start being able to rank under is the term embroidery kits UK. So that if you type that in Google, you will rank. But it's really like given me the ick. I cannot imagine anywhere on the website writing that phrase, embroidery kits UK. It feels so inauthentic. It feels robotic. It feels to me that if you read that in a title of a web page, you're going to think, what? Why would anyone say embroidery kits UK? So I've been a bit head in the sand, battling against them, saying, no, I don't want to do that. And then a couple of days ago, Jen and I sat down and said, right, we need to kind of be sensible about this. How do we do this in a way that feels authentic to us? And actually we started thinking, well, loads of the suppliers we work with are British based. We work with so many small businesses. And so like all our fabric that goes into our kits is screen printed by Amy, an independent artist. She screen prints all the fabric up in Headland Bridge. Or all the wool that goes into our needlepoint kits is British wool from a small British business called Appleton's. Even down to our paint. All our paint is from a small British supplier called Culliman, who mix small batch paint company. So actually, this is something we should be really proud of. I think there's like a 3-tiered thing. We should be celebrating the fact that we have this really small radius of where we get our products from, and we kind of work with small suppliers wherever we can. And actually, most of the small suppliers we work with are all female-led suppliers as well. We should be celebrating that because that's something we should be really proud of. But also that in some part explains why the kits are the price they are. We are not buying materials from China. We are not finding the cheapest things we can find. We are putting quality materials into our product and we are paying our suppliers a fair rate. We should be proud of that. And then also we should shout out to them. Like we should give them acknowledgement because I just want them to get more work. I want these businesses to do well because we do well. I want us all to share in that. So rather than trying to cram the word embroidery kits UK into the website, what we will do is we will build a page on the website which celebrates our suppliers, that talks about our British-based business, our UK businesses we work with, our small businesses we work with, and we will celebrate it. And that is a way of kind of taking the challenge that the SEO company have given us, taking something that's commercial and making it into something that feels authentic. We've done the same now on the website. We have a page all about embroidery for beginners because we want to rank on the search term embroidery beginners kits. But that doesn't mean we do it all inauthentically. You know, we have a page that actually walks someone through the information they might need if they're new to this. The information about why would you choose one project over another project. We are building good quality information in a commercial way. That's why I wanted to talk about it, because I think this is really interesting how other people can bring things to you, and even if you feel really uncomfortable, find a workaround, find a way to make it feel true to you. So the 5th topic, and this is one that is definitely a more vulnerable and much more candid discussion because it is something which I don't think I've done well, is this idea of if you don't commit enough to something, you can never enable it to flourish. And I'm talking here about our kind of membership program. So just for total background on this whole topic, basically the reason we have a membership program is actually entirely related to our refill kit offering. When I first started the business, I had no idea how many of our customers would return over and over again. And so about 3 years after starting the business, we started getting quite a lot of messages from people saying, I'm on my 3rd tapestry kit and I don't want to receive another of the sewing bags because I've already got a couple. I don't need another. Can I just receive the materials of the kit without that? And it started making us think we really do want to offer the option of people to receive just the individual items for the kit, nothing that repeats from previous kits. Effectively, the option to refill your kit. But I think the way you receive our kits the first time you start is absolutely integral to your experience of the product. I think it is integral to encouraging you to finish the product. I think what's so special about the Fabled Thread is our products celebrate the making process. It is important that you like the finished piece, but it is most important that you enjoy the process of making it. And if that comes in a beautiful box that every evening it is your 45-minute treat to get that box out, to open up your box of threads and to sit with your embroidery and do it, if that is what makes it feel like I feel special because I'm doing this, then that is critical. So my worry was if we introduce something like refill kits on the website at a reduced price, people will just go buy the refill kit. They'll skip the first step, they'll skip the first experience, and then they'll never know why I love embroidery or why I love tapestry. So I wanted a way to have refill kits that would only go out to people who've already bought from us. And the way we did this was by introducing a membership program. Through the membership program, you get access to a paywall area of the website where you can basically buy a refill kit. And then we started selling other things through it, like you can buy any kind of frames that are seconds frames, you can buy some one-off things, we can test experimental products through it. Having the paywall area then also has enabled us to put other things behind it. Other things which were maybe slightly more private or slightly more candid that we didn't necessarily want to publish to everyone, but actually do want to share with those people really invested in what we're doing. So I started writing certain articles that were a lot more about some of the intricacies of things we're doing, some of the things we're doing well, some of the things which we're launching, some of the ideas we're having. I started wanting to write these articles and they all went also behind the paywall. And then we started putting on events. Having a virtual talk once a month where we could have a kind of virtual talk with a community of people. We could test out an idea, or we could talk about something like drawing exercises, how to draw Bradley, invite speakers to come talk with us, and then putting on quarterly in-person events in the studio where everyone could kind of share ideas and get help. So like a lot of things I do, it sort of spiraled beyond what the original plan was, and I almost view it as a bit of like a Substack plus. So Substack plus access to a shop plus virtual events. That's how I view it, and it's priced at the sort of level of a Substack. But what has become really interesting over the course of the year is actually who has joined the membership program. I thought most people who joined the membership program would be because they want to buy the refill kits. But actually what we found was most people who joined the membership program joined because they wanted access to the articles. They wanted to know more about this behind the scenes stuff. They wanted also to know more about kind of how to get creating their own pieces. They wanted the creative encouragement, creative empowerment. And then also what I found is what a special environment our studio days started creating. When people came to the studio, it was incredible. Having people around you, a safe space where you can actually be vulnerable, because the creative process is really uncomfortable. You know, if you've never really done your own designs before, and if you don't necessarily have anyone else in your life who makes you feel like what you're doing is worthy, particularly when it's your hobby. A lot of people don't feel like their hobbies are worthy. Having an environment you could go into where people there celebrated you, where you can't show them a drawing and everyone laugh at you and say, that's terrible. You know, everyone looks at it and is like, wow, God, geez, I want to do that. I'd like to make that. Or even actually just having someone there who just says to you, stop worrying, stop changing your mind, just get on with it. Almost like accountability. On these studio days, it creates this really special atmosphere. But the negative that I found is that actually what was ending up happening was I was creating this environment for so few people. And for the majority of people who are part of the membership, it was a super one-way relationship where I would basically just broadcast information to you, and there's very little way for you to interact. You certainly can't interact with someone else as part of the studio, and the only way you can really interact with me is to email me back. We don't even have like comments under the articles, so you can't even get discussion going in comments. So I knew in my heart that what I had created was a Substack, not a community. It's not a community if people can't engage with each other. It's coming up now for a year since we launched the program, and I want to try something different. I want to actually create the environment of the studio day virtually for anyone to access. I just think so many people do not feel like they're creative because they've never been given the confidence to be creative, not because they don't have the talent. I think there's a massive gap, and I do think creativity can change your life if you just can learn to embrace it. I think the self-confidence you gain from feeling like you can make something, I think, is immense. I want to trial a different way of doing it. So I wanted to trial it with kind of 3 groups of people. I want to trial it with members of our existing community. I wanted to trial them with existing customers who have chosen not yet to join the membership. So I reached out to customers who'd ordered, I think 5 or more times and had ordered in the last 6 months. So people who we know like what we do and we know have bought from us relatively recently. And then I wanted to reach out to people who have never bought from us and never intend to buy from us. And those ones I reached out to via Instagram. And what is the bit that about this all that is really vulnerable is how people replied. So on Instagram, I put out a video and I said, I'm looking for 30 or 40 volunteers. I want people who have never bought from us and never intend to buy from us and are interested in the idea of this. And I posted the video, set off, drove to the studio, half an hour drive. When I got out the other end and looked at my phone, we had over 150 volunteers. It was mad. Amazing, amazing generosity of people's time. So what an incredible response. So then the second group, I'd reached out to the customers who have bought from us but not members of our existing community, and we had over 50% of them responded saying yes, they really want to be part of this trial and they would love to have a go and see what this is all about. The group that really did not respond to it, though, was the existing studio membership, and actually only 10% of them responded saying they do want to be part of it. And what it showed me was exactly what I already knew, which is that what we have at the moment isn't right. It's not fit for purpose, and it's not giving people what they really need. And obviously that doesn't feel super fun to have something you're doing at the moment that isn't right, but there's a lot of self-reflection that can go on in that. I think there's 2 points that there's 3 things to think about here. First one is like, I am far too stretched, and the issue is if I give everything 10% of myself, nothing can flourish. I have to give things my all, and I have to go for it properly if we want anything to be a success, or else it's never going to be. And that's not a reflection on whether the idea is good or not. And no idea can succeed if it's not given the right means to flourish. Secondly, I think the tools and the platform you are on really matter. I think with what we're trying to build, you have to have the ability to interact with other people. You have to have the ability to discuss. You have to have the ability to find like-minded people and to share what you are feeling and doing. And at the moment, what we have at the moment is not fit for purpose, and we'll never build a community. We will never be able to, no matter how hard we try, build on what we currently have. And the third thing is, I basically think if you therefore do not create the right environment for it, and you do not give it the right amount of time, you should not do it. This is a choice. We have a choice of, do we try build this or do we not? Now, I care really, really passionately about this. I feel like this is the thing that I never knew when I started the business, and this is the thing that has sort of become why I do my job and why I work so hard, is because I believe so passionately in the need to bring that feeling of creativity to those who don't have it and who have been sort of failed in life from feeling like it. And I think that tends to be slightly older people who have spent their entire life being told they're not creative, and I just, like, it breaks my heart a little bit. So I feel so passionately about this that I'm not prepared to say, no, we're not going to do it. So I have to now basically go for it. So what we're doing is I'm firstly hiring someone. I'm hiring someone to work 3 days a week who is going to focus on this, and they're going to work with me on building a bank of resources from everything, like all the different places you can go to find inspiration. All the virtual courses we currently have are going to be in there. loads of guides on everything you are likely to experience when you start trying out your own creative process, like all those feelings about insecurity, all those feelings about being uncomfortable, and then also give you an environment of accountability and support, people to hold your hands and make you keep going. Because I do not want people to stay on kits. I want everyone to make their own pieces, and I want you to feel creatively empowered, because even if it's just a hobby, hobbies are the things that make life worth living. So I honestly feel so passionate about this that basically what we've done is we've made the decision to go for it. What we've done is I've brought from all those kind of 3 groups about 150 volunteers together who are going to be our guinea pigs, and they are going to join a very rough and ready platform for the first 3 months and be part as we try to build this. We're going to build out all the resources, build out the whole thing, and launch it from the start of next year, and then basically give it a full year of actually committing time and investment into it. Let's try and make this something. I feel like I then exhausted myself with my own sort of impassioned proposal, but basically this is something that really means a lot to me, and I think is going to be really transformative. And so I wanted to kind of share it with you and tell you a little bit about why we're reaching the decision we're reaching, and how the amount of self-reflection that's gone into that. So I am really now testing you in this whole idea of how long can a video be, but we are going into our final topic, and this one is just light-hearted and very fun, but is a focus group I'm running next week all about a new idea for a product I really want to launch. I think could be brilliant, but I want to know what other people think. So basically, I'm sure I spoke about it in one of the studio diaries before, but a couple of years ago, my dad bought me a laser cutter, like a basic model laser cutter. But I'd been talking quite a lot about how I really wanted to be able to create unusually shaped mounts for pictures. I wanted to be able to have different shaped openings, sort of like arches and stars and things, so you have a bit more variety, and I wanted to cut them out of wood. So mount them to the front of frames. Cool framing ideas. Which, by the way, I do still want to do at some point. So, you know, watch this space and don't steal that idea. But that's why I got the laser. But then when the laser arrived, we went away for the holidays, and I took my laser with me because, you know, as you do. And I took loads of felt. In order to learn how the laser cutter worked, I used felt. And I started making these little felt pictures. And I did these portraits of horses, like Houdini and Scout, Jericho, like little portraits of horses, and it was really just for me, just an experiment in how does this laser work. But in the evenings, whilst everyone else was watching TV, I would go sit at the table with a pair of tweezers, a toothpick and some glue, and glue all the little pieces of the picture together to layer them up and make the designs. And it was so satisfying. From start to finish, within about 45 minutes, I could have actually made an entire finished piece. And I love embroidery. I love the patience embroidery requires. I love the pace of the process, but sometimes you want the immediate gratification, and you want to just be able to sit down, start and finish a product within an hour, which that is never going to happen in embroidery. And so it got me thinking. I just thought, I wonder what people think about this. Is this just me? Am I just the only one who might like this type of process? Or would other people like it too? So basically, it's been fostering in the back of my mind for a long time. It's a really complicated idea because it requires an awful lot of investment, because basically you have to invest in a mega quick, speedy laser cutter, because nothing is commercially viable if it is done on the tiny one I had. It's just not possible. It would take about an hour to actually cut every single kit out, which, you know, that's not a business. So basically, this is not the sort of product I can just go for. I need to get other people's thoughts on it. So next week we have 15 people coming into the studio, them plus Izzy and Jen, they're going to join it too. And I am running a focus group, and I am going to get everyone to have a go at this process. And we're going to do it just using a really simple design. I'm going to use this little elephant here, and everyone can choose whatever colours wools they like. And I'm going to get people to have a go at making it, start and finish, 2-hour workshop, and see what people think. Now, obviously, what I'm sharing here is, I guess, for most companies, like super sensitive information, because I've shown you an idea that I'm thinking of, which is totally different, and you could now go and do it. But I am quite a firm believer in putting ideas out there and seeing the reaction hearing from people what you think of the idea. I think if you are so insecure about the idea that you don't feel like you can tell people, or you worry that someone is going to be able to come along and do it better than you, then you shouldn't do the idea. I think you have to believe that even if everyone knows exactly what you're planning on doing, you can still do it better. And I believe that with this. I believe that we can do it better. And so I'm not worried about sharing it, because I would rather hear what people think, and I would rather tell you what's coming, because then I can get your input. As much as it's amazing to have those big dramatic launches, actually if you're investing a lot of your time and a lot of your money into a project without getting some form of market reaction, then I think that's mad. But obviously there's a reason I put it right at the end of this video, because actually if you've made it this far, then you're probably pretty committed to what we're doing. And so I've put it right at the end of the video, because that in itself just enables a slight level of privacy and security, because most people won't get to hear. So that's what we're doing. I'll keep you updated. Now, I have obviously tested you all on what is the optimum length of a video, and so I'm going to end now, but I wanted to show you one final thing, which is the latest embroidery I've been working on. And this is an update from the last Studio Diaries. I talked all about these little Japanese colour books, and I talked a bit about how I was trying to use the colour book in order to break myself out of my colour choosing mould. And I have been working since then on an embroidery based on one of these colour palettes from the book, and here is the piece. And I hope you can see this properly, but I am so pleased with it. There are colours within it which are colours that I would have always combined together, but there are colours in it which I would never have combined into the colour palette, and I think work really well and have changed my thought about colour. So take things like this sort of muddy pink colour. I would never have combined that with these ones, or even actually, to be honest, putting the blues in here. I probably would have gone down the route of turquoises and purples and left it at turquoises and purples, but these blues I think have worked really beautifully with the colours. So I'm really excited about this, because I feel like I'm pretty strong on colour, and I have learned something new through this method. It's such an easy method, and so I really think that's really fun. If you haven't seen what this method is, go watch the last Studio Diaries, and there's a whole section on the end on it. So hopefully for the next video I will have this all finished, framed and painted. So there's my challenge. You can hold me accountable to it. So that is everything. Thank you. I mean, do tell me this was like mega long, so maybe you're going to say to me, you've gone too far now, this was too long. Tell me. Thank you, and I'll see you in a few weeks. Bye.